Now that we have seen some of the XPath methods through which we can identify dynamic elements in our application, now we'll see some of the XPath axes, right? So what are these? So these represent the current node and the relationship with different nodes through which if we are able to find an unique attribute for our current node, we can actually find the other nodes which relate to this current node, right? So there are different ways of doing it. We'll go through one by one, right? So the first one is following, right? So what it does, it selects everything in the HTML DOM after the current node, right? So if you are able to identify a particular node, which is your current node, then you can identify all the nodes which follow that particular node, right? So if you're not able to identify some node, some element, right, in the application, so you should look above. So if there is an element which has got a unique attribute and you can easily identify that, then you should go for that particular element, and then you should use following so that you will get all the following nodes for that particular element, right? So you'll be able to then identify any node which is a follower of which is following that particular node, right? So let's see how we can use this in real-time scenario, right? So let's go back to our project, and we'll be using this page just to demonstrate this particular method, right? So how can we do this, right? So okay, so let's see. So we have this last name text box, and then we have this gender, right? We have two radio buttons, male and female. Now if I want to click on this male radio button, and just consider for an example that you don't have any unique identifier for this male radio button, right? uh, both these radio buttons are same and they don't have any unique attributes to identify each of them, right? So that's our scenario. So just consider that. So but we do have a unique identifier for the last name, right? So we'll be using following axis to actually find and click on this gender male using the last name, right? So this is our current node last name, and this is the following node. These are the following nodes actually. So let's do this. So we have got a ID for last name, right? So we'll use that. And so what's its input, right? And then ID equals to this last name. Okay, so we are able to uniquely identify this particular element, but we need to go down and we need to find this gender radio button and click on this male radio button, right? So this is the syntax actually for following, right? So after your XPath, you can give a double slash and then type following, and then you can give two colons, right? And then the type of element which you want to identify, right? So what's the kind of element? The gender one, right? We can look here. So yeah, so it's an input type, right? So let's type input, and then, but the problem is there are lots of input types, right? So we need to narrow it down further. So what we do is we take the type as radio. So that will narrow us down to only two matches, right? Now, further, as we have got two matches, but we want to click on the first one, right? So we'll use index to narrow it further down, and we can uniquely identify that element, right? So I did not use any unique attribute for this radio button. I just used the input and the type as radio, right? So there could be a number of these common types of radio buttons, but what is helping us is the previous text box last name, right? So this is helping us with the following tag. We can actually find our radio button. So this is how you can use following access, right? In XPath. So let's check this out. So we'll try to get this. So driver dot find element and by dot XPath, and we'll provide this XPath here. We'll perform the click operation, right? And let's check it out. So it should click on that radio button for the mail type, right? So it's going to open and then it should select that radio button, which it does, right? So this is how you can use the following axis. And let's go to our next access method, which is ancestor, right? So ancestor is something which allows you to select all the ancestors, which whether it is a parent element or a grandparent element from the current node, right? So if you can find your current node, you can actually go up, right? So who the nodes which are ancestors can be found easily, right? So let's see in our application where we can find this. So actually these are all under this form action sign up, right? So all these are under this parent element. So even if I choose any of this element, it's okay. So let's choose the title, right? So we have got a ID title, so we'll use that. And but that's a select control, so I would rather go with the input control, input type, right? So we'll take this. We have got the ID as first name, so I'll use that. And input at ID equals to first name, right? So we are able to uniquely select this because we have got a ID. Now I want to check whether this form is present or not, right? So what I'll do, I will do ancestor, right? I'll use ancestor access method, and then it's the same syntax, right? You do a double slash and then you give the access method and then double colons, right? And then you type the type of element which you want to find, right? So say for example, I want to find div, right? So as you can see, it has identified almost 5 div elements which are ancestors to this particular element, right? But we want, say we want this form, right? So we want the login form. I want to check whether it is present or not. So I will use the second index of this div element, right? So I get a collection out of that. I just want to pick one. So I will use index. So this is how you use this is how you use ancestor method, right? So again, we'll use the XPath, and this time we will do this, right? Is displayed. So let's check this out now. So the script should simply pass, right? So I'm just checking whether that form is present in this page or not, right? And on the first control, I'm just clicking on it, which we have already seen. Okay, so it clicked and it must have checked whether it is getting displayed. So to check further, you can also store it in a Boolean value and you can print that value. So it should be coming as true, right? So let's move on. Uh, Now, the next access method is child, right? So as the name suggests, it selects all the children of the current node. So if you identify one current node, you can then get all the children nodes from that particular element, right? And then obviously again using index, you can select any of the particular element which you want to work with. So the syntax remains same for all the access methods. So once you remember one, you should be able to do it for any of them, right? Okay, so what should we do is, so if we take this div class login form, right? So this is a kind of parent element. It has got a lot of child elements, right? And if we want to work with one of those child elements, if we can access this login form, right? So it's div and class equals to login form. Yeah. And then we use the child access method and same syntax. This time around, we will be using the input, right? The input tag, but as you can see, there are 18 input tags in the form. And what do you want to do with this? So I just want to have the, okay, so still it is selecting all the input elements. So we'll do one thing, we will narrow it down, right? So we will select input add type equals to text, right? And we'll see now still we have got 4 elements which are getting identified with the input type as text, right? So now if I give index like this, it's not going to work, right? So what we can do is we can surround this as a complete XPath, right? For a single element, and then we can give the index as 1. So that will give us the unique element, which is the first name. We want to enter the first name here, right? So this is our XPath. This is how you can use the child access method, right? So find element by dot XPath, and I'll use that XPath. I will use send keys to enter some text here, which something first, right? So this is our element, and we'll just comment the previous elements once, and I will test it out. Okay, so it should enter this particular text into the first name field, right? And we have not used any identifier for the first name, but we used the child method to go from the top element to that particular child element, right? So it is entering into the first name field. So this is how you can use the child element uh, in different scenarios where you don't have any unique properties for any particular element, right? Okay, so moving on. Now we need to see preceding, right? So preceding, what it does, it selects all the nodes that appear before your current node or element, right? But it doesn't take into considerations ancestors, attribute nodes, or namespace nodes. So it only selects some particular nodes which are prior to that particular element in the document, in the DOM, right? So let's see how we can use preceding. So let me just comment this out and go back. Okay, sorry. Right, so we will be doing preceding. So what can we do for preceding, right? Okay, so let's take this next button, right? What I want to do is I want to type in this confirm password text box using the next button, right? So the next button has got a button type, so let's use that button, and the type is submit, right? So that will identify this submit button. Okay, right? And then we will use preceding, and again the same format. This time around we'll be using input tag, right? So input, but as you can see, again there are 18 elements which are unique, right? Now what I want to use, maybe I'll go with 16. No, so um, maybe 12, right? So 13. Okay, let's try with 14. Okay, so I think we will stick with one, right? Whatever it is. So it comes as the email address, right? So we'll enter the email address. So this is a preceding element to the next button. So we'll be entering the email address to this, right? So we are doing that through again index and preceding access method. So again we'll do this driver.find element by.xpath, and so we want to enter an email ID, right? So I'll just enter an email ID. Now, as I said, you can easily find out the index and also enter in any of these preceding fields, right? So instead of confirm password, I'm just using email address, but in your case, you can easily find out which index you want to type in and you can use that index. So not an issue. Instead of using an index, you can also actually give some other attribute which can identify this particular field, right? So you can do that way also. So let's test this out. So once, as I was saying, once you learn one access method, it's pretty similar. Once you understand what it is doing, you can easily use this access methods for your application, right? Okay, so it entered the email address. I hope it is making sense. So let's move on. We have got few more. So now we'll be seeing the following sibling. Now what in this access method, right? It selects all the siblings after the current node, and siblings actually lie on the same at the same place or in the same nodes, right? So they lie uh, in the same parent element. They have the same parent element. So that's called a sibling, right? So let's see where we can get this. This is not the one. Okay. So in this, as I can see, right, I can see this text already have account and the sign in link. These are two siblings. So let's see what is a sibling first in this particular case, right? So these two elements are at the same level. These are sibling of each other because it has got a same parent element, right? And they are under the same tag called P. So these are at the same level. So these are called sibling elements. Now, using the text, I can actually click on the sign in button, right? So let's do that. So P and text, right? And this. Okay, so it should be equals to, and we found it, right? Now we want to find the sibling. Okay, so what was our access method? Following sibling. So following sibling, right? And then again, same format, and this time we'll be giving it a tag, right? And that's unique. So this is how you can use following sibling. Now we can click on this sign in button. So let's do that quickly. And by .xpath .click, right? Okay, so let's check this out. Okay, so it clicked on the sign in link and it went to the sign in page. So this is how you can use following sibling. So let's now quickly move on to the next one, which is parent. So as the name suggests, it selects the parent of the current node, right? So where we can apply this. So what we can do is, so this is the parent node for this is the parent node for this, but these are all under one parent node, which is the form group, right? And so this for this as well, right? So we can take the first name. Let's take the first name and we will use parent. So input at id equals to first name, right? And then we use the parent to identify the form. So we will do div, right? So there is just one form group, right? So for this first name, this is a parent element, right? So we can identify this, whether it is displayed or not. So I'm just showing you an example. You can obviously look at your application and then decide where you want to use these access methods, right? So by.xpath and use this, and then dot is displayed, right? So let's quickly run this and we'll be on to our next last access method. Okay, so this is how you can use parent access method. Now the last one is descendant. What does it do? It selects all its descendants, whether it's the children, grandchildren from the current node, right? So it's pretty similar to the child access method, but in this case, it actually selects all the children and grandchildren, but child, it only selects the children of the current node, right? So that's the difference. So let's see where we can apply this, right? So as it selects the children of the current node, right? So if I take the login form again as the class, right? So let's try this. So we have the login form, right? And then we take the, what's the access method? Descendant, right? So descendant. So we use descendant, and then what we should we use? Maybe input tag. So we got all the 18 descendants, right? So these are the children and grandchildren of this particular node. So say for example, I want to enter the last name, right? So I will use this, but it seems there are two. So I will just narrow it down, right? So maybe input at type equals to text, right? Okay, so then I'll use, I will use the index on this complete XPath so that I can uniquely identify this. But I want to select the last name, right? So I'll use the second index. So this is our unique element. You can test it out here. So let's quickly enter this and test whether it's working or not. It should work because it is able to identify that particular element, right? So here I will enter last. Okay. So it should enter last in the text field. Okay, so it entered. So this is how you can use descendant for identifying any child or grandchild element from the current node, right? So this is how you can relate different XPath access methods to identify different elements which are in related or relation to your current element, which you are able to identify, but you're not able to identify some other elements. That's why using a relation to that particular node so that you can find the other elements, right? So this is pretty useful in pretty complex applications where you generally don't find easy identifiers. So in that case, this might be useful, right? So this is all about XPath Axes. And then in the next sessions, we will be looking at some of the other classes of Selenium WebDriver. So like the select class, action class, right?